Welcome to the Future is Borderless podcast with David Nilsson. We feature top entrepreneurs and thought leaders from around the world, those who bring a global mindset and a unique perspective to their life and business. Now, let's get started with the show.
Hey everyone, welcome back to The Future is Borderless. And in this particular episode, we're looking to uncover the real stories behind some big ideas and the entrepreneurs who bring them to life. Today's guest is David Berg. He's the founder and CEO of Redirect Health. And David's journey is a really interesting one. It shifts from working at a mental hospital in Toronto to trying to take on the entire American healthcare system. And it's what he's doing is nothing short of remarkable. So built a great business that's challenging the status quo. And I think you'll find this a really interesting conversation. So have a listen here. Hey, David, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, David.
All right. Well, I'd actually like to start. I mean, you're in the healthcare industry and you've been in that for most of your career. I'd love to understand. So what was the sort of origin story that got you into healthcare initially?
Oh, healthcare. That was when I was 19 years old. I needed the money. So there's a real origin story. That's it. Yeah, I worked in a mental hospital and insane asylum, essentially in Toronto for 7 years doing double night shifts, putting myself through school. And I got to tell you, a lot of stuff I learned there, I still use today around just getting along with people, game theory, predicting people's behaviors and getting in front of it. There's a lot of things I learned in those 7, 8 years I worked night shifts in the mental hospital.
What were you doing there though?
Oh, I was the heavy. I was 6'4", 215, 220 pounds, and my job was to go anywhere where there was a problem or they were suspecting problems. And um, I was there. I don't think I know anyone that was there more than 2 years, and I don't think I knew anyone who worked there didn't get in a fight or get hurt. And I will tell you, I was there almost 8 years, and I didn't get in one fight, didn't get hurt once. So I had a pretty good mouth on me, I guess, or a pretty good mind on me that that my and a good mouth on me. So I could talk people down pretty well. And
Well, being 6'4" and a couple 100 pounds, it doesn't hurt either. But I'd be curious though. I mean, there's got to be some sort of people skills or lessons inside of that. Like, what helped you sort of navigate that type of environment, sort of unscathed, for lack of a better term?
well, the uh, the my go-to move was I know that everybody smoked, and so my go-to move was to go buy a pack of unfiltered Marlboros so I could have both sides of the cigarette, break it in half, put it in my pockets. And if I found, I'd hear you were having problems with Joe. And so my job is to make sure you and Joe don't get in a fight and make sure, you know, everything's calm all night. And so I'd go up to you and you'd be searching for a cigarette usually. And I go, hey, David, what are you doing in there? Come on, get your fingers out of there. And I'd say, hey, Dave, I heard you had a bad day today. You okay? And you go, yeah, I'm gonna kill Joe tonight, though, man. He's got it. And I go, hey, don't you worry about Joe. I got Joe. Here, have a cigarette. And I give him half a cigarette, and you go to bed, have a great time, just a restful time, and just go to sleep. Watch some TV, go to sleep. I got Joe. You don't have to worry about Joe. And then I'd go to Joe, and what do you think I'd say to Joe? The exact same thing. And then you two would just sit, you'd go to bed, have a great time, and I'd read between your rooms all night and study. I mean, that was my go-to move, and I got so good at it. And if you think about game theory, it's all about setting up a higher probability of cooperation than betrayal. And so, in the big ways of doing that, I've since learned, I didn't know it at the time, that it's about setting up a long-term relationship with people so that there's increased there's increased probability of cooperation. So if I'm giving them a cigarette, there's an element of reciprocity which plays into game theory. They've known me. I was there a long time. I was there 7 years, almost. I say seven. It might have been eight. So they've seen this game before and they want to play it in the future. So there's intense cooperation. So it was that kind of thing. And I probably had like 4 or 5 go-to moves, but that was the one that I would go to the best, or that worked the best. I'd go to the most often.
Yeah, well, it's such an interesting place to start. But you were there for 8 or 9 years. So
Yeah.
after that, like, were you going to school
Well,
to be
yeah,
in the
I was
healthcare
going to
industry?
school. Yeah, I wanted to be an engineer. at the University of Toronto, and the courses are really, really hard. And it's just there's no way I could pass the advanced math. It was just way too hard. It was obvious within a couple of weeks I didn't have a chance. And I'd met this really pretty girl. She's really nice to me on one of the tours.
Yeah.
Um, and so I'd stayed in contact with her, and I switched all my classes over to her, and she happened to be in pre-med. So hence I'm in healthcare because a pretty girl was nice to me when I was failing out of advanced math for pre-engineering.
That's all. I love how you
And that's
adjusted.
how I got there. And then, I finished my undergrad. I go, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? I didn't want to do healthcare. I just did it because I was stuck and I had never heard of a guidance counselor before. So I just followed a pretty girl into healthcare, and she became a medical doctor and I became a chiropractor. And we've gone to school together, practiced together, done businesses together we've been together since 83.
Oh wow, so same person.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I can't even imagine not working with her.
Oh, that's amazing. I love it. So today you're the founder and CEO of Redirect Health.
Yep.
Can you tell the listeners here a little bit about what is Redirect Health? And then I'd love to understand like
Yeah.
why you chose to go down this path.
Yeah, so my wife and I lived in Toronto, and we decided to move to Phoenix, and we were going to start a medical practice, and we did. And it was really hard. It was harder than you would imagine as a Canadian coming down here. We didn't understand the acronyms, copays, coinsurance, deductibles. It took me 10 years to know the difference in a copay and coinsurance. And I meet doctors today, don't even know the differences in their counseling. So that's why doctors are just out of the financial piece of healthcare. They just don't understand it. It's too confusing for us. But I found that I knew how to make money in healthcare. It was in America, but I never could figure out after 10 years, how can I make healthcare affordable for my own employees? I'm in the middle of this business and I could not figure out how to make it work for them. And so I was like every other small business owner at odds with my employees. They want me to pay for more. They can't afford what I can buy for them, can't afford the out of pockets, can't afford to include their kids or their spouses or the parts they have to contribute. So no matter what I spent, this was back in 2007, it seemed like it was still wasn't enough. And when I really did the math on it, it wasn't enough. They couldn't afford it when the deductibles were $1,000, $500. They didn't have that in savings, so it made no sense. Now those same deductibles can be 18,000 a family in a year. But
Yeah.
back then, it wasn't affordable at 1,000. So it's even less affordable now. And most of my employees made normal wages back then, about 14, $15 an hour, for most of them. Sure, the
Yeah.
doctors that I employed, the managers, they could afford it, but the three-quarters of my staff didn't have a chance. And I didn't recognize it till I really started talking to them. So the other thing coming from Canada, I got really used to the healthcare system there is not as good as in America, not even close. But the peace of mind it creates because of the money piece was so amazing to me that I could move to the United States where the healthcare is so much better. The access to MRIs, the surgeries, the great doctors, the technology was so much better. It wasn't even close. Yet the peace of mind was missing in America. And so I just set out to figure it out for my own employees. How do I access the American healthcare system but also have that peace of mind? And that meant you had to eliminate unnecessary activity through the system and eliminate the cost wherever we can, the waste. And
Yeah.
because I'm in it, and I can see the waste. I know the streamlined pathway to the value is really easy to see it, really easy to see it. And I had the motivation because I wanted to provide this healthcare for 100% of my employees and 100% of their families, and I wanted them have peace of mind. So I had a vision that was pretty big, and a mission was pretty big. And many said it was impossible, and it was using the existing system, but I just created a new system for myself. And I saved money, a lot of money, and I created great value for my employees. And it meant that the byproduct was I had like incredible retention capability. Nobody left. Nobody left just because I could make healthcare so inexpensive and free, really. And I had to use the telephone a lot before it was an in vogue thing to do, telehealth. There wasn't even a name for it back then. We just used the telephone. And but what happened then is the recession of 2009
Yeah.
happened, 2010, and a lot of my friends in YEO, Young Entrepreneurs Organization at the time, were laying off maybe 30% of their employees, like everyone else during the recession. But the insurance cost stayed the same. So the same amount got spread over a smaller group of people. So the effective rates per person went up. We're going up like 30, 40% for my friends in the middle of a recession, and they're already stressed. Everyone's worried about going out of business and what's going to happen next. But I wasn't. Our help, what I had built, our system did not have that same problem. My costs didn't go up. They stayed the same or went down every like many years. And now they've just been flat for a decade. I mean, it's the most amazing thing. If you eliminate waste in healthcare in America, if that's your only move, eliminate the unnecessary activity, the unnecessary waste, administration, rates don't go up. They haven't gone up for a decade. I'm just
So
telling
can we dig into that for just a second then? Why has that not happened?
Okay, well, so the cost of healthcare has gone up, but if you add the administration and the waste and the right, that part has gone up. The cost of waste has gone up. The cost of administration has gone up, but the cost of the actual healthcare, I don't know what it has. I'll give you one example.
Okay.
The cost of your phone and or all the capability of your phone, it's gone down over the last 10 years, right? It's technology lowers cost from capability to cost ratio.
Yeah.
It gets better over time. So MRI machines don't cost more money for the value we get for the MRIs are better and they cost the same amount of money. So if we just look at MRIs, that technology, back in when I first started paying attention, say 2008, the range was about $380 to 3,800. That's a pretty big range, but a 10x range. But if we fast forward to today, that range now is 250 is at the lower end, not 380. But the upper end, I've seen them at 15,000. So 250 to 15,000 is the range. So what I'm saying is the cost of the MRI has gone from 380 to 250, the bottom end. So
Yeah.
all that extra, what is it? It's waste, it's administration, it's bureaucracy, it's the bloat. And so if just that one MRI example, if you know how to not spend 15,000 or not even spend 3,000, not even spend 1,000 for an MRI, you're going to win. MRIs today all over the country are pretty easy to get for about 250 to 500. That didn't exist in 2008. It was hard. It was a little harder to get. I couldn't get an MRI for 250 in 2008. I can today, all over the country. So there's an example of how the technology has lowered the cost of the healthcare, but what's happened alongside of it is the system has gotten more expensive. The MRI didn't get more expensive. The system around it got more expensive. And if you think about it, all the companies in healthcare today in America are publicly traded, so all the fiduciary responsibility is to improving share price. So if waste is profitable, you've got to put it in your system. If extra administration is important, extra bureaucracy is important, you got to put in your system to compete with the other publicly traded healthcare companies. My system that I built, I didn't want to participate in that, so I just built a system alongside where I can use the components of the system, the other system, but I don't have to use the system. So I created my own system that gets to use the operating room, gets to use the pharmacies, gets to use the doctors, but doesn't have to participate in the system. And that way I can control the waste and administration bureaucracy that's in it.
So are you insuring then on top of that? Or is your business the platform that facilitates that?
Yeah. So redirect health today. To continue that story, I helped enough friends, probably about 15 of them. They were business owners and it worked for every one of their companies. This concept of reducing waste and administration bureaucracy, surprise, surprise, works for everybody.
Hmm.
It lowers costs for everybody. And so it's really about engineering that elimination of unnecessary activity and unnecessary spending. And so it worked. And one of those people that I helped, friends, was the mayor of Phoenix, former mayor of Phoenix, Paul Johnson. And he had 14,000 employees in the city of Phoenix. So he had to deal with healthcare with that big group. And so when I helped him with his company, he somewhat got what we were doing. And he really like bought into that. Well, yeah, you're right. We should not be paying 15 or $8,000 back, probably $4,000 back then for an MRI. If we can get it for 400, why would we pay 4,000? Well, the only reason is you didn't know, and you had a bureaucracy around it, administration, a system around it that guided your people, your employees, to the $4,000 option versus the $400 option. So Paul got it. And I also helped his brother's drywall company. And Paul was on me for about 2 years. Basically, the message was, "What is wrong with you, Dave? The most valuable thing you do, you give away for free." And then you do this healthcare clinic stuff on the side. We had clinics. And so he convinced me to start to take our platform, a very rudimentary form of it's not, it's so different today than it was back then. This was in 2013. And in 2013, he convinced me to start Redirect Health, helping other businesses and getting paid for it. And Paul and I are partners on it. Paul's a minority partner and a very important partner, and my wife too. And we did not intend when Paula and Janice, my wife Janice and I started it to go nationwide. We thought we were going to just do it for our few friends, EO, YEO back then, just be the cool kids on the block for our entrepreneur friends. That was the goal of it, and get paid to do it.
Yeah.
But it's turned into something bigger. And then by 2018, we were nationwide. We had to figure out a nationwide solution. Enough people wanted it. Word of mouth traveled. Oh, can you help my brother's trucking company in Missouri? Yeah, I think so. We got to check the laws, and we figured out how to make the laws work. Initially, we were just under Arizona state law, and then we figured out how to use federal law so we could be relevant and legal in all 50 states. But that was 2018, and fast forward, we've got hundreds. We might even be approaching a thousand now businesses that we take care of, tens of thousands of people, and it's getting easier for us to take care of people because now you think about it, we have so much more data now and technology, and now we're using AI in a big way, in a very relevant way, every single day, every single minute, really. So it's easier for us to do what we do, and though how we do it has changed because technology has gotten better and easier and cheaper, our mission's the same: eliminate unnecessary activity and spending so that more people, everybody has access to healthcare in the company, and there's price points so that every single employee and every single business, if they want to, can have some form of basic healthcare. So that part hasn't changed for since 2013. Really since 2008, because that was the mission for my own company. That's what I was trying to get for my own company.
Yeah, I love how you had a personal need that you solved for your own business, and really what it sounds like is you productized it and spun it out and created a new
I tell
business.
you, I promise you this, David. If somebody else would have done this, I would not have built it myself. I would, I was that business owner who was, but I'm the new guy from Canada, so I'm trying to like figure stuff out fast. I'm an immigrant, and I don't get what you guys seem like you get. But the more I ask questions, I realize you didn't get it either. Nobody got it,
Yeah,
and I was trying to make the math work. I go, well, what's $1,000 deductible? I don't even know what that means. And in healthcare, I've never experienced that concept. But
yeah,
what if somebody doesn't have $1,000? What do they do? Like that's just a basic question. What do they do? Why would I buy this for them and subsidize it and make them pay for it if they can't use it?
yeah.
Well, that's not your problem. They can borrow it from somebody. I go, oh, that's a great plan. Great plan. Great plan B is you have to borrow it from mom and dad.
Yeah.
It's
I mean, look,
real
I read a
real
statistic
money
not
game.
long ago, and I know it's directionally correct, and it's not specific because I don't remember the exact number, but it was something about 30 or 40% of the US, if they got a $300 bill out of nowhere, right? Like they got in a car accident and had to do something, they can't pay it. So $1,000 deductible is even significant, much larger than that. And I can see why that wouldn't be the issue, or that would be a major issue. Having been in business for a long period of time, I do know that those deductibles are one of the biggest pain points
Yeah.
for people that you know
Yeah. So
are.
increasingly, what we've done is we have taken our platform, added more technology and structure to it, and data. There's so much more data now. I think there was a lot of data before, but we respect it more. We collect it and we use it, and we combine it in ways we never imagined before. And and the whole thing here is we want to be able to predict clinical need before it happens. We want to predict when you're going to run out of that insulin, when you're going to run out of the asthma inhaler for your child that's going to put you in the hospital or worst case death, right? But it's going to scare the heck out of you regardless because the consequences are so big, it scares people. So we want to predict clinical need. We want to predict the financial exposure that might be there with that clinical need before it happens. I just told you the MRI can be 250 to 15,000. We can, if I know you got back pain, I can predict the financial exposure is higher that you're going to get sucked into that wasteful MRI. You need the MRI, but you don't need that cost.
Yeah.
We've got to control the cost if we want to provide great healthcare. That's our belief. We have to control the cost, and we have to eliminate a lot of the costs, like to zero, of the waste and the bureaucracy of the administration for the employer so that their employees can have great healthcare. We believe that that is fundamental, and we have forever since we started. And it's more true today than it was when we started. And I don't think anyone disagrees with that at this point. What's funny is when we first started, there's a lot of disagreement. Like we were the lone voice. Like it was, I was doing math, and I'm the Canadian doing math and going, I don't get it. I'm gonna build my
Yeah.
own system. Took me 10 years to realize that nobody else knew what they were doing either.
Yeah. Tell me a little bit. I guess one of the things that I'm wondering is if, you're starting an industry like healthcare, very well established. It's a massive industry. There's a lot of regulation and there's legacy
Yeah.
systems and ways that people are used to doing business. And then you're coming in trying to eliminate all that profitable waste. So how did you sort of navigate that? And were there tensions along the way that you had to sort of figure your way through?
Oh, 100%. And remember, I had a healthcare company too, like clinics and surgery centers, multi-specialty, hundreds of people working for me. So I was counting on a lot of this administration bureaucracy waste was my revenue in my clinics. That was my revenue.
Oh, wow.
So I'm right in the middle of this innovator's dilemma. So the reason Redirect Health didn't exist sooner was because I could not upset my existing company, my existing revenue, my existing profits, um, and so that was why it took 2 years for Paul to convince me to start another company that was separate from my other company because it was taking a different approach. My first company, it made money by doing what every other doctor did. I only made money if you came into the office. I did not make money by showing you how to stay out of my office. That makes sense, right?
Yeah.
So Redirect Health, I've set up a different business model so that I make no extra money, whether you go to a doctor, don't go to a doctor, take this medication, take that medication, whether we spend 250 or spend 4,000 in MRI, I make the same membership fee, somewhat like a Costco, like that. They make their money off the membership. They might have changed the model, but that's the idea, the concept direction. So if you think about it, if they can get the prices down on the products and goods, they're going to sell more memberships.
Yeah.
That's the model that I created a long time ago to break away, and I did it separate from my clinics because my clinics were in a conflict with that. My clinics needed higher prices and more services in order to be
Yeah.
profitable. The business model, I was forced into that business model by the system. And that's another thing I've learned. I might have been too hard on the people in the system or the insurance companies or the hospitals or the drug companies or the PBMs. They deserve some grief, but at the end of the day, they're good people and they're doing what they should do. But it's a system that forces them. If you want to be profitable or be in that system, you've got to do things a certain way. So I created Redirect Health so I wouldn't have to do it that way.
Yeah.
So I could, but I built and I used the strategy that I built for my own company. And if you think about it, because I was building for my own company, I didn't have to make it profitable. But when I went to create a new company, I had to make it profitable. And that's where I created this membership model, basically copying Costco. I mean, that's where I got the idea from.
Yeah.
I've got to decouple myself from the volume of care that happens and the price of care that happens. I can't let my revenue, my profits, or success of my business be related to that thing that's irritating every one of the customers of healthcare, which is higher prices and too many services and too much bureaucracy. So that's how the model started, really just copying Costco. But I did it for myself.
Yeah.
I did for myself first, and then when I had turned into a business, I copied the membership model at Costco, the concept of the membership model. I've never talked to anyone at Costco, so I don't know what they really do. I've only read in the books everything you've read.
Yeah. Oh, I think your direction is correct, at least. Tell me a little bit about how you measure success. So obviously, every business at some point needs to be self-sustaining, right? So profit's always one. But if you take those things aside, like what are some of the key levers in your business that you look at that help you know whether you're moving towards that purpose, that vision that you've got?
Yeah. So, and Vern Harnish from Scaling Up, I'm sure you know him. He started YEO. I mean, he's the
Yeah,
legend. Such a
yeah.
dear friend of mine. And so everything I say, this will make him proud because this is his. There's just two ways I think about what your question about measuring success. One is he calls the Moneyball stat, the stat that where I have an advantage. Like how am I advancing the stats, the KPI, the objectives where I have an advantage. And the other is about constraints, right? So
Mhm.
getting rid of constraints. That's totally from him. So as far as the Moneyball stat or the advantage we have, there's really about two things, and it's um, having prices and many price points and prices that will help any employer get healthcare for about half the cost of what it is already. So we are intentional about costs about half. Like that's intentional. That's our advantage that we can do that. And
Mhm.
because of that, we can extract and I want to extract as much value of that 50% as I can. I want to make sure we're doing it in a membership model. And we
Yeah.
do that better than anyone else I know. We extract more value out of a lower price so that than anyone else I know. As far as constraints, the big one is we've got to control the hospital costs. So we measure, I won't get in the weeds too much, but we know there's a baseline based on Medicare rates. So we measure how much our clients pay above the Medicare rate on average, and we measure it case by case, group by group, month by month. And we want to measure. We watch, are we paying the right amount relative to Medicare? Why that's important is just like the MRI rates have gone from up to 15,000 sometimes.
Yeah.
We know the Medicare rate is closer to 250, 300. We know
Isn't
it's,
that interesting?
yeah. And so where we used to see, let's just go back 10 years ago. I would say most hospitals were charging around seven times Medicare, 700% of Medicare. But they would, so, and our number is usually about 130% of Medicare. So 30% above Medicare. But sometimes we pay 200% of Medicare, sometimes 300, sometimes 120. The average is about 130 to 140. And it was there 10 years ago too. It was easier 10 years ago because all the hospital systems were about seven times. So we still had work to do to get the real price. I'm telling you that there are still probably about half the hospitals are still about seven or eight times Medicare. But I just saw one that was 50 times Medicare. I don't know how that even makes sense. 5,000% of Medicare. Like nobody's going to pay it.
Mhm.
I saw another one, 23. I'm going to just call it out. Riverside. No, I won't do it. I'm going to get in trouble. I've got in trouble if I call it out, but it was egregious. It was an $800,000 bill, which represented, and Medicare would have paid 37,000, and it was 800,000 was the bill as one of our clients. Now our job is to get it, and we got it for about 42,000, but the bill was 800. And they're sending bills to the member, trying to leverage them, scare them. But it's not real, right? It's such a fake number. 23 times Medicare is what 800,000 is on 37,000. That was just a couple of weeks ago. But we're seeing numbers like that, like such egregious charges that nobody expects to get paid. And if you
Yeah.
do pay it, you're just not doing a good job usually I shouldn't say that. I don't want to be judgmental because it's so hard for people. But if you're a larger or a medium-sized company and you outsource your self-insured plan, you're going to have some out-of-network benefits. If you don't have your out-of-network benefits written strategically in your plan document, you will leave it open for that hospital to go extract that $800,000 from you. All you got to do is make sure the language is right and put the rules in place. And as soon as the hospital sees that you've got that in your plan document, that 800,000 goes down to 40, $50,000 very quickly,
Unreal.
99% of the time. And so there's a lot, it's so complex right now that a lot of people are making mistakes. And the hospitals, you think about it, if that hospital that is charging 800,000, if they only get paid 1% of the time, that's good. That's the equivalent of like probably 20 clients that pay the right amount. All you need is one sucker to pay too much, and it'll make your quarter.
Yeah, it's funny for an industry that has so much regulation, seems like almost the wild, west. It's sort of counterintuitive to hear
Well,
these.
here's what's interesting is we did that data. I mentioned earlier that we have more data today. It's access to data. There have been laws have been put in place, hospital transparency laws and No Surprise Act laws. But the hospital systems and the insurance industry and the PBM industry, they are so smart. They can get around any law.
Yeah.
And the first part is having their lobbyists pay more than the next three, than DOD and all the next three biggest don't match healthcare lobbying. So there's creating the law, there's enforcing the law, and there's enforcing the penalty for breaking the law. And so they know this. And it's so complicated and complex that it's really good. So it's really easy to avoid the law if you're a big company. But I tell you, it is changing a bit though recently, and
What's driving the change?
it's got so egregious. There's my opinion. It's got so egregious that the vast majority of the profits that are being made, that are being reflected in share price and driving share price up, are just egregious. And if you want to continue to increase your share price, you better continue to get more egregious. You better challenge the law more. You better just we see there's so many nonprofit hospitals right now that are, I'm not the lawyer here, but they are not honoring what the IRS says they need to do to maintain their nonprofit status. But the IRS it's hard, so complicated that I don't even know they know how to really assess it. We see it every day where a hospital that's got nonprofit status is not doing what they need to do in order to be a nonprofit to keep their nonprofit status. But if everyone's doing it, it's hard to enforce. The No Surprise Act, same thing. The Transparency Act. Um, I think it was the first administration, Trump administration. There was a law. I'm going to be a little loose on this, where they had to have their charges in a machine readable file. You're lucky if it was a third of the hospitals that really even honored it, and there's
Yeah.
no way to enforce it. And then even when you got it, it wasn't necessarily accurate to the point where couldn't do anything with it. Well, I created a system where I could take those machine readable files, and then I could know what every service at that hospital got reimbursed by every payer contract they had, which was the intent of the law. But what I saw quickly was the data was inaccurate, and many hospitals didn't even have it, or they had it buried on their website and wouldn't tell me where it was. It was impractical. But I built the capability as if that data existed because of the law, and then I recognized that, it doesn't exist. They're not even honoring the law. They're just ignoring the law. And I never would have known that, except that I built something to take advantage of the law, to see the transparency in pricing. I had to scrap it. I didn't use it. Well, more recently, President Trump signed an executive order that puts pressure on them and said, you got to release it. So now they've all got it on their website. We find it all the time and it's easy to find. Well, now we're finding something new. But I built the capability to decipher the machine readable files. Well, now what I'm seeing is, yes, 100%, pretty close to all the hospital systems have their machine readable files, but apparently there's something in the law still that got missed in the executive order that allows them to put like 1 penny placeholders in their costs. So we're looking at their charges and it says 1 penny, and it's a placeholder. So they might have 30 contracts, but they only list 10 of them, and then the next 20 say 1 penny, 1 penny, 1 penny, 1 penny, 1 penny. And I go, oh my gosh, the work we have to do, even though there's law in place and an executive order to get to what the price is amazing. And
Yeah.
I don't remember the question you asked, but the answer is, it's just we don't have a chance. It's just there's so easy for the industry players to circumvent the intent of law.
Yeah, I think that was the baseline of the question, just trying to figure out like how it even got to this point. I want to switch topics for just a second because we only have a few more minutes left here. I want to hear for someone that's listening to the podcast and they're saying, wow, I know this is a big issue. I'm struggling within my own business. You and I talked a little bit about franchising right before we started this call. And, franchising is an industry where a lot of the workers themselves aren't eligible for healthcare because it's not provided, because it's just not accessible for many of the franchisees. Who is your ICP? Like, if at the end of the day, what kind of company really would benefit the most from your services?
Okay, so it's going to be the hourly worker that makes normal wages. And in a small business, in this, let's say under 500 employees, which is pretty much every franchisee, but let's just say 500 because that's where the stats are and that's what I know. It's probably about 80% of all the workers are hourly employees. So it's
Yeah.
not just about the employee though, because the decision maker is not the employee, it's the employer, it's the owner, it's the CEO, it's usually them. And it is important. Our ideal customer or customer profile is that CEO or that business leader that recognizes that if they can solve this problem for their hourly worker, not for their key employees that make $100,000, $200,000 a year,
Yeah.
they've already got something. But if they, the leader who recognizes that if I can solve this problem for my hourly worker, this will help drive my business. My business model will be successful because I will be able to attract people and retain people in a way that my competitors never will. What I just shared with you was me when I started this. I was that leader who said, if I can solve this problem for my $14 an hour employees and their children, I'll never have a recruiting or retention problem ever again in my company. And that was a big constraint for my company back then.
Yeah.
And so I solved that constraint. I just annihilated it. Like it didn't even, I actually had to learn different things because if you have that system, people that would normally move through and move on to next careers, they stay a lot
Dang.
longer. And when you stay a lot longer, at some point, the raises don't keep happening in the same job. And you can become disgruntled if you feel stuck, but you can't leave because you got the healthcare. So we had to get really good at helping people move on to the next stage, where they might not have healthcare, and that might mean help them go back to school, help them get jobs. We'd help them with resumes, help them with referrals. Sometimes we'd have to fire them because they were just disgruntled and they weren't working and they were resentful. But I actually set up a part of a system I set up was it wasn't so we had a letting go system or a moving on or parting ways system, but the criteria for success was they still want to be a customer of ours. And that was a criteria I've had that for 20 years, since 2008. I've had that with all my managers. If somebody would part ways with somebody, whether they leave or we ask them to leave, they still want to be our customer. And so that's a hard lift. But it was the get out of jail free card for my managers for a long, long time. And so we had to come up with new systems for helping people move on. And what that also meant is we came up with new ways of hiring people. So we wanted to hire very ambitious, smart people who would help us build process and would help us backfill themselves into that process they ran and they helped us create. So it was very common for us to hire people that wanted to get into medical school or nursing school.
Yeah.
Right. And we would help them then get their resume together. We'd be the reference for them for the school. We knew we had them 2 years or 3 years. And then they'd be recommending their little sister or their cousin or their friends. And they'd be proud of the system. And they continue to, many of them have families today. We've been doing it so long. And so,
You know,
but we only had to create those systems. I never would have done that, except that I noticed that when I solved my recruiting and retention problem, people didn't leave. And
yeah.
and it's necessary for a business to have people leave. Right? I don't want somebody answering my phones for 30 years. I want
Yeah.
them taking on new responsibilities.
I always
Right?
tell people being an entrepreneur is like playing professional whack-a-mole. You solve one issue here and then another one, raises its head over here. And so that's just kind of the way it goes.
And
I actually,
I've got some great people that work for me for a long, long time. But what they would all tell you is that they are a better human being today, and they take on more responsibility today than they took on 10 years ago or 15 yeyears ago by far.
yeah.
And that's
There's
always been important to me to see that advancement in a career, especially of a young person.
Yeah, there's a great book that I read long ago called The Alliance, and it really resonated for me. It talks a little bit about what you're talking about, which is when somebody joins the organization, you agree that, hey, we're starting this tour of duty, whether it's 1 year, 2 year, 3 years.
Mhm.
But my job as a leader is to prepare you for the next opportunities, to help develop you as a person and a professional and help you continue to learn and grow, whether it's here or elsewhere. And so we open that conversation up early. There's nobody sneak attacks you with a resignation, because you're already talking about what they want, where they want to go, and you're also helping them in that transition. It builds a lot of loyalty along the way. So I love the way that you're thinking about that. David, because we have just time for one more, I want to talk about. I love the fact that you're taking on the healthcare industry. This is obviously a very large need for a lot of businesses. If I think about you as an entrepreneur, I'd love to just hear, like, what is the ultimate goal of this business, and what do you want your legacy to be?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. So here's my dream, and I fully believe I'm going to accomplish it. So right now we have 25,000 people on our platform, somewhere around there. I can see a day when there's millions, any American that wants it, any day. But what we have to do is we have to get a price point that's closer to zero for that to happen, to provide basic healthcare. That means we have to use technology, we have to use AI, we have to be smart, be strategic. And so maybe we have to get somebody else that benefits from those eyeballs to pay for it, right? So you think about Google, nobody pays for search. Nobody would pay a penny for search. It would change the model. But Google makes a lot of money, but search is free. I see a day, I see the pathway. It's very clear to me what it looks like, of a platform that helps people, anyone in America, access healthcare, the basic levels of it, and to avoid the bureaucracy and the waste and the administration that makes so many things unaffordable. It's not hard to visualize. It's hard to build it. It's expensive to build it, and I don't have all the people around me, and I don't even know who they are that can help, but I know it's possible. But that's where I see this going. It does not make any sense to me, with all the resources that we have in America and the great healthcare we have, terrible healthcare system.
It's bad.
But it is bad. The system is bad. The people are good people. The healthcare is leading edge. The technology is leading edge. The system we put it in that makes so much money off bureaucracy and waste and administration, it's terrible. And it's so powerful that it makes everybody, including our policymakers, have to participate in it in order to even survive. And so we've got to bypass that and get some. It blows me away that we've got this much capability in America, but we can't figure out how to get around the profit motive and create some basic level access to healthcare and the peace of mind that would come with that. I know we can.
Yeah. Well,
I know we will. I can't even imagine that we're going to continue to tolerate what we're tolerating right now.
Yeah. Well, we know it's going to be there's going to be a lot of change in the healthcare industry over the next decade. And I wish you the best success. I love what you guys are doing. For the listeners out here, we've been talking to David Berg, who's the founder and CEO of Redirect Health. David, where can people go to learn more about what you're doing?
So redirecthealth.com, just like it spells, just like it sounds. My email is david.berg, BERG, like iceberg, at redirecthealth.com.
Awesome. And we'll put those in the show notes for everybody. But
Yeah.
David, thanks for spending the time with us today. Appreciate you being on the show.
My pleasure, David. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Future is Borderless podcast with David Nilsson. Be sure to click subscribe to future episodes so you can hear from more top entrepreneurs and thought leaders. And we'll see you again next time.